Hello, Jeff Helvin here with Ballen Brands, and today I actually want to talk to you a little bit more about a how come video. I'm doing a how come video instead of a how to video. And the reason for this is because we talked to a lot of agents and we talked to them about some of their challenges, some of the struggles they have, and we've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of people that have really learned how to hone in on the lead generation side of what they're doing. And so what happens next is we're able to generate a lot of names and numbers, a lot of leads, but then it starts to get a little difficult to actually manage, maintain, and stick with these new contacts and these new leads that we generate. So I wanted to explain a little bit about what we've done in our system, what we've built, and we use Infusionsoft, and we've built campaigns that we do offer for other agents, and we've built campaigns that help us interact with the database. Now, some of the key components here really is identifying who the actual leads are and how we should be speaking with them. So we've developed a series of campaigns. Not all of these are available for market, but I will address the ones that are to kind of help understand how we utilize our campaigns and how we interact with our database. So I'm really just going to run down the list here, going from the bottom up. And what we have here is our first campaign that we have in here is Ballen's TurboDial API functions. We do utilize TurboDial. We think that's a great product. If you want more information on that, please visit lorriestools.com and see the different tools that we use there. And we use this one to do the texting component, as well as we can do phone calls as well in that. And so, but the texting component is key to our interacting with the database because we tend to get a lot more response via text message. So working with this works within a lot of these different campaigns, and we just utilize it. Like I said, it's a programming function here that we do install as part of our campaign structure. Now, the next thing here is the buyer arrival. Now, we have a buyer arrival and a seller arrival. And the arrival campaigns, we call them the Autopilot ISA because they're intended to help assist and again, as an autopilot here, to run and chase basically after your leads. Now, what these are really intended for would be more like cold web leads, maybe Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads, that kind of thing. It's not meant for maybe an open house lead or someone that you may have actually already spoken to. The whole purpose of this arrival campaign is for two-way contact. The goal here is just to establish whether or not the name and number that we generated is who they say they are, and whether or not that number is a valid number, and whether that email address is a valid email. So the whole point of this campaign is just to get that two-way contact, just to make a touch with that particular lead to get them to respond. So this is actually a 90-day campaign that runs and has a series of questions. The first 10 days it's very aggressive, and then after that it's once a week, different days of the week, different times of the day, of course, to try to get someone to respond. Now, once someone responds, there's usually a few different results. One, either they say it's the wrong number, they're not interested, they already have an agent, something like that. Well, of course, we're just going to mark them as a dead lead and move on. Another one might be where they respond and they say, "Oh, I'm interested in this particular property. I'd like to go see it this weekend." Well, in that case, you're not going to put them necessarily on another campaign right now because that's automation. And right now, if they're ready to go now and you've qualified them, well, we don't want to automate anything with them. We want to handle that manually and make sure we're going to take them to the closing table. So the third option that might happen is they might say, "Yes, we're interested, but we're a ways out." Now we see that a lot, especially with web leads, where they're just starting their search. I mean, they might be 8 months out, sometimes 15 months out. I mean, it could go. We've closed deals over 2 years out from when we first generated that lead. And what's important with this is that we have a way to keep in touch with them. This is where we start to fall off. So we have what we call the survival campaign, and the purpose around that survival campaign is literally just to keep in contact. So whether you talked to them last week or whether you haven't talked to them for 3 weeks, this survival campaign is going to fire about every 3 weeks. So we have it set up for sometimes 17 days, sometimes 28 days. I'm sorry, not 28 days, like 23 days, 21 days. Again, we're altering the days of the week and the times of the day. Now, based on how they responded in arrival is how we're going to communicate with them in survival. So Arrival is very specifically, again, is going to send out emails and text messages. And if you'd like to add phone calls into that, you can, or even voice drops is an option. And then if they respond via text, well, then they're going to be on a survival text campaign. If they respond via email, they're going to be on survival email campaign. So the system records and detects that and actually does that automatically for us, which is great. Now, let's say they've been on the survival campaign and now we're talking about it's been 12 months. Survival's a 12-month campaign. So let's say it's been 12 months and we go back and we look at their record. You get a notification that the campaign has finished, and now we're looking at it going, well, okay, let's assess this contact. Now, if they haven't responded in the last, I don't know, maybe 3 touches, I mean, that's more than 9 weeks, that's a couple months, they haven't responded, well, we have what we call the revival campaign. And that campaign is designed very specifically to, again, it's aggressive, or it gets aggressive again, I should say. And from there, it's gonna message them once a day for the next week. And it's gonna ask them questions like, have you chosen someone else? Have you decided not to move? Things like that. So the point of this is, again, to not have a quiet lead. In our world, a quiet lead is worse than a dead lead. We'd rather them just tell us they're not moving forward and not have us waste our resources on them any longer than to just stay quiet. So the point of this, again, is to get them to respond. So this is the new lead, a new contact, a new lead in the system. They go through this autopilot series, and that's where we go. Now, once someone has actually raised their hand to the degree where they're ready to actually be qualified, we're establishing a rapport with them, we're going to manually reach out to them. We use a sales pipeline, and Infusionsoft does offer opportunity stages as an upgrade. And so we use the sales pipeline, and what this is designed to do is actually keep track of our leads in what categories. So we use A, B, C, D buyers, for example. And so we qualify people in an A, whether they're A stage, B stage, C stage, or D stage. And based on that stage is how often we're going to reach out to them. If we have an A buyer, we consider them ready, willing, and able, right? So it's really just a matter of getting them the right property. There's no other hindrances. They've been pre-approved. They're ready to move now. They just need to find the right property. So that's an A buyer. Now, in our world, an A buyer needs to be touched at least once a week. More likely, you're probably talking to them multiple times a week. But if you haven't, the system is designed to remind you once a week to connect with this particular person if you have not already. So that's an A buyer. A B buyer we have set up on a couple weeks. Our strategy there is to reach out every couple weeks. If it's a C buyer, a B buyer is ready, willing, maybe ready and willing but not able, or they're ready and able but not willing. There are 2 of the 3. Is how we qualify that. It's not so much a timeline, whether it's 90 days or 30 days. It's more about the objections and what we're working against. So if they're a B buyer, then we're interacting with them every couple weeks. That's kind of our strategy, and that's a manual interaction. Now, the system automates the reminder to interact with them if you're not already, but the actual interaction itself is purposely manual. From there, we have C buyers, that's every 30 days, and D buyers we have out further than that. So now on the seller side, we have short-term nurture, long-term nurture, and so forth. Now we also have, once they get into contract, a stage. Once sellers, for example, go under contract or their home is listed on the MLS, that's a stage. So we've designed these stages to work as well to keep to keep kind of consistent and keep our database and our pipeline in order to make sure that we're not dropping people, we're not forgetting to follow up with somebody, we're not missing someone that's important because this file is taking extra time to work or what have you. So the point of this, again, is to manually help hold accountable who we should be talking to, okay? So going back to kind of why I started this conversation, this is a how come, not a how to. And how come we build these this way is because we need to stay more in touch with the leads that we're generating. Again, I hear too often, I generated 200 leads this weekend, or I had a great open house and had 40 people through, or whatever it might be. And really what it comes down to is there's 2 or 3 people that might be actually reactionary to you and interacting with you. And then there's the other 37 people that basically they just kind of get written off. I mean, maybe they get put on a drip email or some sort of market update or something like that, but at the end of the day, you're not pursuing them. They're not categorized anywhere. So we need something more like these campaigns. If you've already had two-way contact, an open house campaign, an open house contact, for example, we can put them right into survival, and then they can just be pursued every few weeks after you've had the open house. We create an open house campaign specifically if we want to talk to them more specifically a certain way. But the point is that we need to have more direct communication and seem more authentic in our approach in what we're reaching out. Now, I also have a sphere of influence campaign that we developed, and this one's very simple. It's every 6-week touch. 6 weeks from when they go on sphere of influence, you get a task on your list to call them and actually have a conversation. 6 weeks after that, a text message is going to go out. 6 weeks after that, an email. 6 weeks after that, a call, a text, then an email, a call, text, and an email. Now, this just runs on an indefinite loop. It just continues to go, because if they're part of your sphere, then we're going to keep in touch with them. And the point of this is not to try to get them to do a transaction. The messages in here are not, when are you looking to buy, and so forth. These are not for leads. The sphere of influence campaign is more designed, again, for our contacts, the people that we're trying to communicate with. I have clients that put in here automatically in the text message that goes out, hey, I was just thinking about you. Would love to do coffee. Let me know when. Something like that. You can have that. You could have 300 people on that same campaign. And just have that rolling through, and maybe throughout the course of the year you have 300 cups of coffee. That's not a bad thing at all. So again, this is designed to reach out, to pursue, and be a little more authentic. From there, we have a past client campaign. Now, this one is it's a 30-day campaign, and it's meant to be a little more customized. The point of this campaign is actually to interact and engage with your past clients, in case you're not. Now, here's the thing. I talked to some agents, and they have got their closing process down on lock. They've got 30 days, 60 day. I mean, they're following up. They're calling them multiple times. They're sending things. I mean, believe me, some people have their system down pat. And in that case, you're not going to use this kind of automation. But I also hear, unfortunately, more often that once we close a deal, we're moving on to the next closing. We move on to the next file, the next leads, and maybe we don't give the proper attention to our past clients. We kind of take for granted the fact that we say, oh, just call us anytime if you need help, and then we find out 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later that they struggled getting utilities on, or needed a resource for a landscaper or something like that, and it's just simply we didn't reach out, and so we weren't able to be there to help with that process. So this past client campaign is again just a few touches. It's a text, it's an email, it's a phone call, and then it automatically puts them onto the sphere of influence campaign. So then that way they now become part of your sphere of influence and your database touches. So that works out really well in there. We have an internal forms campaign that we automatically install for you as well. This is for contract details. This is for escrow information if you do escrows. So these are meant to help control and make this system, Infusionsoft, easier to utilize, so that you don't have to try to navigate around to 17 different spots. You're able to actually go to one spot, fill out required information, and move forward from there. Now we have these other campaigns that we've developed here that are more for, again, just being personal, touching the database, helping to establish a rapport. So we have a birthday campaign, we have a holiday campaign, anniversary campaign. The anniversary could be for home anniversary or it could be for spouse anniversary. We could duplicate it to be for both. But the point of these campaigns, I mean, they sound simple in nature, right? Once a year you send a birthday notification, happy birthday. But really what we've done here is we've added a couple components that, again, make it a lot more strategic in our approach and the whole purpose behind this. And we have the ability to hook this up to a third-party printing company like ZenDirect, for example, or send out cards. And we could send physical cards as well. We can also send physical birthday cards to some people and only electronic birthday cards to others, and so forth, just all based on how we manage our data in our database. So what we have here is very specifically, again, meant to seem personal and to reach out. Now, look, I say seem personal. I mean, this is automation, but at the same time, like, the point of this is to actually put some thought into it and to make sure that there's care and concern. So in this particular case, like our birthday campaign, we say something like, each day we should recognize somebody important in our lives, and something more heartfelt. And today that person is you. Happy birthday, was thinking about you. Now, even though this, again, was automated, the fact that we took the time to put them on the campaign, that we, have invested in doing this, I mean, we do still care. This isn't just a sales strategy. This is we like to hear get the email back that says, oh, thank you so much. That's a connection. Even though we didn't manually instigate it, it's still a connection. It's still part of the whole nurturing process in the database. Another one that we do is a market update campaign. So this one's actually pretty simple in nature as well, where the idea here is that we're publishing some sort of market report or a market update on the website, like a general one, like for your main city or your certain focus area. This is not meant to be a separate campaign for every individual person and their particular zip code. There's services that do that as well. But in this particular case, what this is, hey, I was just thinking about you, and here's the latest information on the market. So buyers or sellers, especially sellers, if they're watching the trends, this is great to have them on as another touch. And every 29 days, an email will go out that gives them a link to that page on the website. So all you have to do is make sure your website's updated once a month, and it's always going to be considered fresh content. And again, the purpose of this isn't a fancy flyer with all kinds of imagery or so forth. We don't want it to look canned. We don't at all. We actually want it to look like we personally just typed out a message. So if you were to look at these, you would see that they're actually quick messages that say, hey, I was just thinking about you. Here's a link to the latest market information. Let me know what I can answer for you. Things like that. So we're also developing a review campaign. We have a scoring campaign that we're working on based on interaction, what they're interacting with IDX and so forth, and being able to add more pursuit there. And again, we continue to develop other campaigns here. So anyways, the point of this is to share a little bit about kind of how we go after our database. This isn't about clever verbiage and tricky top of mind drip emails. That's not what this is about. What this is about is having a combination of these to pursue your leads and to keep in touch with your database. That's what's so critical here. So anyways, if you have any questions, love to answer those for you. You can always reach out to us at team@ballenbrands.com. Again, this is Jeff Helvin, COO of Ballen Brands, and we look forward to working with you.